based on what I look for in films about Santa Claus, I shouldn't like Fatman, but I kind of did. I will say that if I were in a different mood, I might not have liked it as much. It's definitely not a film that I could watch at any point and really thoroughly enjoy. I think I have to be in the right frame of mind to watch it. And thankfully I was. I was very open to something being a little bit different, quite creative, generally a well-written story, but definitely not what I would look for ordinarily. So I guess it caught me on a good day. I watched it when I was in the right mood. Under different circumstances, maybe I wouldn't be saying this. Who knows? Either way, Fatman is pretty interesting. This was released in 2020. It's written and directed by Ian Helms and Eshen Helms, and we have a cast including Mel Gibson as Kris Kringle. We have Marianne Jean-Baptiste as Ruth Kringle. We also have Chance Hurstfield as Billy. And we have Walton Goggins as Jonathan Miller, or Skinny Man. And this is not... If I showed you a picture of Kris Kringle, I don't think you'd say that's Santa Claus. It's a very different interpretation of Santa, of Kris Kringle as a character. But honestly, it's pretty fascinating. Business isn't doing very well for Santa Claus, and things are, well, he's not in the jolly North Pole, put it that way. He's actually in Alaska, and the workshop is very atypical for Santa Claus. And that in itself was fascinating enough. It's a very different, very fresh interpretation of what life is like for Santa and Mrs. Claus. But then we have the violence. It's a very violent film, which is not what I look for in a Christmas film. But as I said, it must have just caught me on the right day because I rather enjoyed it. A young boy hires a hitman who sets about trying to assassinate Santa Claus. And I will say no more than that. But it's a dark film in a lot of ways. It's very action-packed, not at all festive. This isn't my version of Santa Claus, and yet I really enjoyed it. So, honestly, I'm kind of confused about that because I shouldn't like it based on what I look for. And I guess that's a good sign. If something I fundamentally should not enjoy, because I like things to be traditional and not breaking the mold too much when it comes to Christmas films, and yet I was still able to find it a really fascinating, enjoyable experience, I'm taking that as a good sign. I'd love to know what you think of this. If, like me, it doesn't sound like your kind of thing, but you're curious, I'd say definitely check it out. But I'd also love to know what you think of it if it does sound like your kind of film. If you read this description or you listen to me talking just now and you think, actually, that sounds really fascinating, does it meet your expectations? Because I don't ordinarily watch this kind of Christmas film. I mean, I'm trying to branch out a little bit more, but because this is not my go-to, I didn't have any specific expectations. I also just don't watch this kind of film in general. If you take out the Christmas aspect, this kind of narrative just isn't ordinarily for me. But again, I am trying. One of my resolutions for next year is to try and watch more action-based films. So I'm always open to suggestions. But the point there is that I'm not necessarily the target audience. I didn't have any specific expectations, and I did enjoy it. But if you like this kind of film, maybe you'll enjoy it. I hope you do. Maybe it won't meet your expectations. I'd love to know. But personally, I thought it was a very well-written narrative. The pacing is generally good. It's maybe a little longer than it needed to be. It's about an hour and 40, and I didn't think it needed to be quite as long as that. It was a little slow to start off with, and maybe a little slow in the middle. But actually, it's really moving. We have some very well-written characters and some really powerful moments. I'd never say it gets too emotional, but there are times when we dig deeper into the characters and their motivations and why they're holding on to this anger and bitterness, and it's very well done. So very, very pleasantly surprised. I had no idea what to expect from Fatman. I didn't expect to like it, but I'm always happy to give a film a go. And on this occasion, really glad I did. Definitely an interesting film. A lot of credit for being very creative. And ultimately, I'm happy to recommend it.